Hey everyone, SBPhilos4 here, back with another episode of the RePHIL Studio. Get your cans ready, we're going to refill to 99 like we always do, because we are ready for the next set. So we have two special guests waiting on the other side of the studio, and there's a lot to discuss. I have a lot of great stories to share, so just before we get things going, I just want to talk about the studio question that we always have on our podcast. So I asked the studio question to all of our Discord server members in the Young Academy Discord. Link is in the description below. I ask this every episode, before every episode, just to get some engagement from the community and what they think. So we'll just get this question out of the way, as this is the main thing I really want to talk about before our special guest feature. So the studio question for this episode is as follows. The next collab announcement will happen next month in June of 2023. Make your predictions on what collab series will happen and the characters featured. So again, JP Dory and Boo Shooter has already announced that there will be a collab next month, or at least they'll share some more details about it. We just don't know anything about it. So I let my community members kind of think and get creative of what they would like to see for next month. So we got a couple of really creative answers. I'll share them on the side here. We have Precure as being one of them, as being a very popular choice. I could definitely see that happening. Chainsaw Man, and there's a little bit of a descriptive of what it could be if it did feature Chainsaw Man. And I think Chainsaw Man would make a bit of sense, but I don't know how quickly to get the IPs done, so that'll be pretty interesting. There would be Oshinoko as well. Oshinoko, again, a very popular show that's just airing right now. So again, I don't know how quickly to get the IP, but I could definitely see that happen. There's some character choices here that could be quite interesting. There was a Madoka Magica suggestion, and I think this is just super overdue. I don't know why this has not happened. I feel like it's just like perfect. But I think there would be some licensing issues, especially with Claris and their songs. So fingers crossed. I would think that would be amazing, but who knows how that will go. Again, these ideas are fantastic, by the way. I would love to see any of these happen. I don't know how practical they'll be, but I would love to see these happen, of course. So yeah, I think that's most of the suggestions we have on the server. But again, feel free to comment below in this podcast on maybe some suggestions on what you think might be a pretty cool collab. And again, if you get it right, big props to you guys. If you get it right and you actually predict it correctly, like, that is fantastic. That would be really fun to see. But in terms of what I would like, I think my personal wish would be a Bocchi the Rock collab. The chances of that happening is like so slim. Like, I really don't see that happening. But if that did happen, then I could definitely see because it is a mixed event. We know it's going to be a mixed collab, so it's not going to be a specific band. So we could actually get really creative with some of the character choices we could have. So for me, I would think like Bocchi, as an example, would probably be, again, someone who's a little bit shy guitarist. That would be Locke, right? Locke would be Bocchi, and Kita, who is the voice, vocals and guitar. I think that would just make sense. It'd be Kasumi, the kind of relationship between Kasumi and Locke. I think that would be really perfect in that sense. Rio is a little bit more tricky because she is the bassist, and she's the bassist, and not a lot of characters really have that sort of strange vibe, and I think Nanami would probably be the closest. So Nanami as Rio would be quite fascinating. Nijika, I think the drummer role, a lot of drummers in the series are sort of like the support role, so I can definitely see Saya or even Tsukushi being hitting that role. And then you need a fifth character, so I guess we would get Kikuri, and I guess make her Layer. She is vocal bass, I think, in her original band, so it makes sense. I think Layer would be a pretty interesting choice there. So that would be, I guess, my Bocchi the Rock Bandori wish list, if that ever to happen. Again, I don't expect that to happen, but let a man wish for what he wants, right? So we'll see how that goes. So that would be it for this side of the podcast in this studio. Let's move over to the other side where we have our special guest feature, and we'll speak with our special guests. And for this set, I have the honor and pleasure to welcome our two special guests here. we have Kelsey and TsyNo to welcome to the studio. So for Kelsey and TsyNo, again, both of you, thank you for taking the time to join the RePHIL studio today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And no worries, man.
All right. So again, just to get things started, we'll have a brief intro from both of you. So for those who may not be as familiar about who you are, so Kelsey, we'll start with you, a brief intro about yourself and a little bit more about you and maybe specifically about your tiering as well.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I like Rui. I tier sometimes. I started playing Bang Dream at I dabbled a bit in JP, but then started playing global at launch. My first top 10, even I guess it was a top 100 title, but it was for Searching for Stars back in 2018. Got a few more top 10s between then and now. I got first place in the Rinko Rui event. More recently, third place in Summer Morph, and currently may or may not be getting a top 10 and just a yes event. We'll see.
Oh boy. Yeah, so I mean, the fact that you're taking the time to join the studio even during your tiering, honestly greatly appreciate that, Kelsey, because I didn't know, and then suddenly bam, look at you go. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll definitely talk about your lovely tiering achievements a little bit more in depth very soon. So thank you and welcome once more.
Thank you.
TsyNo, again, you've been in the studio before, but just for those, again, who maybe are not avid listeners to the podcast, give a brief intro about yourself as well and a little bit more about your tiering achievements.
Hi, everyone. My name's TsyNo. I go by Psy for those who don't want to say the full thing, or people who are just close friends. I'm a FPS main player, but, in the recent years, I've started dabbling in rhythm games, so sort of a FPS player converted rhythm gamer. I started playing Bandori in 2018, but didn't really start any tiering till 2 years later in 2020 when I got my first top 10, and then a year later getting first place. And since the last time I was here, I've gotten 4 more podium titles. Only one of them have being the one I planned for. The other 3 were just kind of tiering temptations that most of us succumb to. So
yeah. So we'll definitely again learn a little bit more about your tiering achievements for sure, TsyNo, as well, because there's a lot has changed since the last time you came here for sure. So definitely looking forward to hearing more from both of you in your great, lovely tiering achievements. So yeah, great. So again, just to start things off, what we usually do with our special guests is just kind of learn a little bit more about their origin stories of how they first got into Bandori. And Kelsey, you first mentioned that you got into Bandori pretty early into its existence. But tell me a little bit more about what kind of how did you first got into it, and as well as the fact that Rui is your favorite, but she didn't necessarily existed at the start of the series. So how did that eventually come to be?
Yeah, so prior to Bang Dream, I played Love Live School Idol Festival. Rest in peace. I was pretty enmeshed in the community there, and I tiered a lot in that game. So when this girls band project thing was announced, a lot of my tiering friends from Love Live were intrigued and wanted to check out the game. So why not? I'll try it out. As I mentioned, I dabbled in JP a bit. Didn't really take it too seriously, mostly just tried out the gameplay. But then when they announced it was coming to the global version, then why not? I'll make an account. I'll just kind of casually play, and then 5 years later, here we are.
Yeah, so that's a pretty a very typical story. I think a lot of us came from Love Live or very similar games as well, and Bandori really kind of stuck for sure. For a lot of us. Maybe compared to some other games. And I think part of it for you, Kelsey, of course, is eventually the introduction of Morfonica and Rui, right? So where did that all start of you becoming the number one Rui fan?
Yeah, so before Morfonica and Rui were a thing, none of the bands and none of the characters really particularly stood out to me as oh, this one is my favorite. But Rui kind of drew me in from the start. I remember looking at the teaser image for Morfonica and thinking what the heck is this grown adult doing playing in a band with a bunch of children. And yeah, so she immediately drew me in. And then once they announced that Ayasa was going to voice her character, I was sold at that point. I might be dating myself a little here, but I've been following Ayasa for almost 8 years at this point. So I was just really excited to hear that she was going to be Riseyu, and just with the violin. The violin's my favorite instrument by far. And then I guess like the icing on the cake is just Rui's personality and values and her background story. They all really resonate strongly with me. So just kind of the perfect storm of everything that I'd be looking for in a favorite character, if you will.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really great to hear. It's really neat to hear, Kelsey, that especially the fact that again you've heard about Ayasa prior to Bandori, and I would have to admit that I'm in the same boat. I definitely followed her during the early 2010s as well when I saw her anime song covers as well. So I was definitely quite shocked and very pleasantly surprised that she would be joining a franchise that was very invested in as well. It was like again the perfect collaboration of two things I enjoy together. So, maybe we're just both a little old, but that's okay.
Maybe a little bit,
just a little bit, but yeah, but that's wonderful to hear, Kelsey. So it's great to hear a little bit more about you and how you got into Bandori for sure. Especially, again, being a big fan of Rui and Morfonica. So yeah. Great. TsyNo, in your intro, I know we've briefly heard about your origin stories in our previous encounters and discussions as well. But one thing, again, I'm always very curious about is the fact that, going from an FPS environment into a different game of tap, tap, tap with cute girls is very different. So maybe briefly describe like how did that happen in terms of going from one aspect to the other?
So I wasn't always an FPS player. So as a kid, I didn't have the things that most people had. So what I did have was handheld consoles from Nintendo. So I started playing those first, but then that was my primary school years. And then when I was in junior high or so, or towards the end of my primary school years, I did end up getting an Xbox 360. So I ended up buying FPS games because I became friends with people who would main that genre. Mm-hmm. And like everything that we do in life, I started off like okay, didn't really excel in it or anything. But, the more I played it, the more I enjoyed it. And that eventually led to me playing in the rank scene for whichever game had it, and just rising to the top of the ranks whenever I could, and with whatever friends I had at that time for specifically different games. But eventually, though, I kind of grew a little tired of the egoism that spawns from getting high in the ranks, and the toxicity just kind of got to me a bit. So at some point, a little under 10 years ago, I started playing different games, just to branch out a bit. and that was mostly like on mobile devices, so like my phone. Um, and that it didn't start off with rhythm games. It started off with like some other like um RPGs, and that eventually led to Love Live, like most people. And from there, eventually a friend told me about this wonderful game called Bang Dream Girls Band Party. So I mentioned that before. It was kind of a funny title to me, and I saw that they had covered anime titles, so I said, why not? And you know, 5 years later, here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, indeed. So going from the FPS community, and then trying to try new things, and then found out Girls Band Party, and then of course with with anime covers and Afterglow, of course, being one of your bands for sure. It definitely kind of resonated very well, and here we are once again. So yeah, it's very, very fascinating to hear how such a different background can really just kind of things. There's a wheel of fate just kind of spins around, and here we are. We're playing a quite different game, but ultimately, we're all just tapping away. Instead of throwing hands, we're throwing. I guess our throwing hands or throwing guns. It's like throwing fingers onto the screen of playing tap. So
I mean, every now and then some people still throw hands, but that's just that's just the nature of competitive.
Yeah, definitely. And we're definitely going to learn a little bit more about this, the competitive spirit, a little bit of tiering, and just the fact that, you will at every time be competing with more people regardless. So we will be talking quite a bit in lengths there. So yeah, so let's just get right into the tiering aspect. So, when it comes to, Kelsey, when you first got into tiering, because obviously getting to the game is very different from getting into tiering, right? You could certainly enjoy the game more on a more casual basis, but trying out tiering is a very different beast. So what was your sort of first exposure to tiering and Bandori, and what kind of first inspired you to kind of get into tiering?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, in Love Live, I tiered a lot in that game. I was in, the tiering community, and a lot of my friends tiered a lot. So, when Bang Dream came out, and particularly when the global version was coming out, because of the lag following the JP version, a lot of my friends were kind of, looking at the past titles and looking at the past events, and we're kind of planning out, I want to tier this one, I want to tier that one. So naturally I kind of looked at the titles upcoming, and at that point, again, didn't really have any particular attachment to any characters or any bands or any stories or whatnot. But I really like the nighttime aesthetic, and stars and whatnot. So I was immediately kind of drawn to that Searching for Stars title, and I just really liked the look of it. I liked how the glowing 100 kind of complemented the stars on the title. So I was like, okay, I'll go for that one. So 2018 Bang Dream tiering was a different beast from current state. There weren't really especially for the original, like it was just the top 100 titles. So there weren't really dedicated tiering servers like specified for one specific event. There were some servers where people kind of played together and whatnot, but for the most part it was pubbing or just kind of playing with your friends. So I decided to go for that. I'm a very risk averse individual, and I really didn't want to boat and lose the chance at that title. So I played a lot and ended up in 4th place, and I got my top 100 title.
Wow, well, that's great. It's really quite interesting that you do it based on the fact that, again, friends, you already had connections that knew a little bit about tiering before. Obviously, Love Live tier. I've heard a few people mention about tiering in Love Live. It is very different from quite different from Bandori in a sense, and of course, and back in the old days, Bandori tiering was still quite different to where it is now. But it was the aesthetics that really kind of drawn you into to really make sure that you wanted to tier and learn a little bit more about that. So that's quite neat to hear. Again, it's a very like the old school kind of mentality of learning to get a title and tier, and then of course many years later it became a lot more serious with some of your title achievements later. So another question I have with you, Kelsey, is like, when did you first hear about like the tiering community? Because again, in the past, it was very like pub heavy. You just kind of do your own thing and maybe hang out with friends here and there while you're tiering. But like the community itself and learning a little bit more about service and all that, when did that first start? Do you recall?
I mean, I knew that like tiering servers were a thing, when they kind of started. I think they started trickling in probably like late 2018, early 2019. I don't know. I mostly hung out in kind of servers with friends. I think the first tiering server actually, like the first like dedicated event tiering server that I actually joined was for Renko Rui as the T1 runner. So yeah, I think in relation to my time spent playing the game, I'm fairly new to this kind of server roster type business for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Regardless, it definitely worked out when you eventually got your T1, and then again, we'll talk about that a little bit later about your overall kind of feelings and sentiments about that. TsyNo, I know you mentioned in our discussions last time about how you got into tiering, but maybe as a different question, do you remember when you first met Kelsey, and how did the two of you get to know each other?
That is a difficult question. I will not lie.
On the spot.
Yeah, putting
Give
me
me a little bit more difficult questions because it's not your first time here. So
I mean, okay, so I didn't end up in the server with Kelsey until my debut in this community, but we didn't really talk so much because it was mostly a server for like people the owner knew, so like we were all just kind of mutuals.
Yeah.
And I think I did respond sometimes every now and then whenever Kelsey would make a comment. But as for talking, I don't think we started talking until, was it like last year or like near the end of 2021?
Yeah, that's about right.
It had to have been like a bit near the end of 2021, and then mostly it began like 2022. I mean, we've started talking a lot more now, but better late than never, I suppose.
Yeah. It's always very fascinating to hear, because again, in tiering communities, or especially in these servers, right? When you build the communities, you start tiering together, you really start to develop some great friendships with other people throughout the community. And sometimes you kind of take a step back and you think, oh, how did this all even start? You don't really remember it, or it's kind of difficult to recall. Sometimes it's a really like funny memory that comes out, and that's how it all really started. But yeah, other times it just it almost feels natural because again, we're all tiering, we're all kind of sometimes in a sense stuck in the same room, in the game, not really physically, but it does kind of feel like it sometimes when you're just tiering and mindlessly tiering, trying to play A to Z over and over again. You're really kind of spending so much time with each other. So yeah. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you remember, or Kelsey, about you joining the community, meeting people like TsyNo, and how did that kind of really make you feel that you wanted to hang out with people like the teaching community a little bit more often.
Yeah, I think it was yeah, just a lot of kind of hanging out and friend servers, and then meeting kind of mutual friends of my friends, and then when some of them would be tiering, then supporting them in that, and then just getting kind of gradually more and more enmeshed in the community, and to the point of, okay, let's check out this roster business.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, this roster business of like, trying to figure out what server kind of regulations are like, a little bit of the, internal politics of that. How was that overall? Did you find it to be a little overwhelming, or maybe not, difficult at first, or it just kind of was pretty easy to learn?
Yeah, I don't know if overwhelming's necessarily the right word, but it definitely was a lot, and it definitely, like you mentioned earlier, it's way different than tiering and SIF was, for sure. It just the kind of collaborative aspect, and for the majority of events, if you're not kind of running alongside a solid team, then you're kind of at a disadvantage. So yeah, it definitely was a lot, but I don't know, my approach to tiering and whatnot, and I think I tend to be relatively chill about that, and I don't know, I came from just kind of pubbing my tiers, so basically any efficiency in a server is better than what I'd be getting otherwise.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, I haven't, knock on wood, but fortunately, I haven't really encountered like too much, personal like drama related to tiering, or the competition or anything like that.
Must be
And
nice.
mostly,
Oh no! Oh boy!
yeah, mostly, I've been fortunate. It's been mostly fun and pretty chill for me so far.
That's really, I think that's great to hear, Kelsey. That it didn't really, despite the fact that it can get a little bit challenging at times to either just join or really kind of make sure you really kind of get an idea of what servers are like. The ultimate goal is that you work together, have some fun, and make it an enjoyable experience for everyone, and hopefully make it as a positive experience for everyone involved as possible. And that just seems like what happened with you. So again, that's great, and we'll definitely learn a little bit more about your overall experiences in each of these events very shortly as well. Oh, good. So let's start to learn a little bit more about the individual kind of tiering achievements that the two of you have gotten. I'm pretty sure they're quite different from each other, so we'll just kind of start with each and one of you. And we'll first start with TsyNo, because again, you've been with us before and shared your experiences of getting first place in One of Us, and it feels like it's been so long ago, because that was when there were so many issues with Bandori and like the scheduling and all that. And I'm just like, wow, that's been like that many years already. But here we are, since that episode, you're here, and you mentioned that you had a number of podium titles. One of them was planned. The rest were somehow added as a buy one get three free or something. But let's first talk about the one that you planned for. What was that event, and how was that overall experience of getting that podium title?
So the only one that I planned for was the Sunset Bandwagon, in which I spent a little bit part of that year grabbing the remaining cards I needed for optimal, since I did want to attempt song tiering at the same time. And the way that turned out is, it honestly was a much smoother time than one of us, because as we all know, one of us was just a lot of stressful, a lot of stress, a lot of factors that came in to determine who would win at the end of the day. But with the Sunset Bandwagon, Pure Glow at the time was still a little, it was coming towards the end of Pure Glow being hard to grab. So not that many people really had it.
Mm-hmm.
So I found myself lucky to like even have optimal at the time. And when I did tier, it's only like it was another 8-day event, which I was kind of a little sad about, because I just kind of felt a little targeted towards Afterglow, because okay, we're gonna have 6-day events now, like as our average. Like, oh, you got delayed 3 months, and then okay, hit us with the 8-day event. Okay, nice. And then Sunset Bandwagon being 8 days event, I was that was like the only thing I was dreading.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, it wasn't contested at all. So I was able to just like play for about like 3 days, was it? Or 4 days. Let's see, I think got 14 mil, so that was like 3.5 days of playing. So I literally played for like 2 days, like really, and then I started playing like really casually around like day 3, and then after that I was just I was playing like my nats for the rest of the event because I saw no need to like spend so much on this title compared to one of us. But during that time though, that's when I started really just streaming my own content, like stuff for like friends to watch with me, because a lot of what tiers take for granted is VC. VC is such an important aspect of tiering if you want to go far. So Sunset Bandwagon was really just me and Houdini Owls just in the call, just watching anime, just the two of us, because nobody else really, I guess, had the time then, or really just wanted to join VC. So I understand that people have their schedules or can't commit, because I feel that way nowadays. I don't really join servers as often, simply because I don't feel like I can dedicate the time to help these tiers. And just simple, and like the simplest reason is I sort of just been slowly burning out since Bandwagon.
Oh yeah. So again, thank you for sharing that, TsyNo. Again, the fact that in the end it was pretty chill for you, so a lot more less of a headache and last racing moment, and compared to the one of us. So just having a more chill event is just a lot. It's obviously a lot better for sure. Just better for the heart, better for the mind, of course. And I imagine, again, you mentioned that you wanted to do a little bit of song tiering as well. So I imagine when you were trying to burn nats, that you were trying to maybe do a little bit of song tiering to see what you could get, or how high did you get? How was that? Briefly, how was that experience? And did you get like a top 10 title, or even higher?
So my score really just came from like the first hour of tiering, because the first hour I made a song room and just started tiering that as much as I could, and I just kept like trying to get like max AP, and it wasn't really happening. I was just getting really unlucky with the skill order, but eventually towards like the end of my set, I did get a score that I was happy with, and it's just it stayed that way, and I was first place at the end of that hour. And then I think it was like maybe day 2 or something like that, or probably later towards the end of day 1, where the infamous Katan pulled up and knocked me out of first place and into second place.
Yeah.
So after like the 3.5 days of like gameplay, or like technically 3 days because the other half is just playing nats.
Yeah.
I was trying to upscore, but didn't really happen because I was in that state of mind like, oh, there's no shot I beat this player who's clearly better than me. So I'll just take what I have for now and just be content with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so you did end up getting a pretty good song title achievement, though, I imagine, and that all kind of worked out. I guess I asked that because, again, it seemed like you had there could have been some extra time that if you really wanted to go for it, and just the fact that doing song tiering and event tiering at the same time kind of seems a little bit nightmarish, because you want to do well in song tiering, you have to be like mentally like sharp to be able to hit the notes properly, and of course keep in mind the fact that there's skill order, skill luck, and all that. That's obviously going to be quite difficult to deal with. And the fact that event versus event tiering, where it's a little bit more mentally draining, you're just kind of sitting there, keep playing over and over again. So I feel people who could do both song tiering and event tiering together, it kind of feels like you should do it because your team is optimal for event, so you might as well do it for song. It's just like, yeah, you might as well do one or the other, or try to do both at the same time. I did that myself, and it was not easy, but I could say that it was also it was definitely an experience for sure. So it's great to see that again. You end up getting both at the same time, kind of kill two birds with one stone, and end up being a pretty I think a pretty memorable event for you.
I am. I mean, I may have not gotten the song T1, but I did run away with a song T2, which was a first for me. Mm-hmm. So event first place and song second place, not bad. Yeah,
that's a 1-2 punch. So great stuff there, TsyNo. So great. We'll briefly talk about your other achievements very shortly. The unplanned tiering achievements. I want to jump around a little bit here and go back to Kelsey and maybe have her share a few of her experiences first as well. So for you, Kelsey, I believe, if again, correct me if I'm wrong, that you kind of went into a little bit of event tiering first, but then song tiering is also something that you do quite often now. And we see you quite often in the song tiering board. So maybe share a little bit more about maybe your first major achievement that you got, either if it was in song or in event.
Yeah, so I think obviously the searching for stars, top 10 / top 100, whatever you want to call it, like that was probably my first I guess noteworthy achievement. As far as kind of next, yeah, I think the next noteworthy achievement both kind of happened the same event. I had top 10 the Bourgeois event, and then ended up getting the first place song title for Gakoka. That was the first song that I really actually kind of pushed myself on and really tried to learn like the OPZ4 and all this like window tapping and whatnot. Up until then it was AP and Gallop and just hope for a good skill order. But yeah, with that event it was mostly I was playing Gakoka so much that I kind of wound up in top 10. I was like, I might as well go for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that was probably my first I guess noteworthy achievement in that realm.
Yeah, so it seemed like, again, song tiering, as I mentioned earlier, song tiering, event tiering are very different beasts. But, by the sounds of it, you've done a lot of song tiering as well, and a bit of event tiering. So, what would you say is like the biggest difference between the two? Obviously they do require very different skill sets, but like, to you, what do you think is the biggest challenge trying to go between like song tiering and event tiering and such?
I guess as someone who, I really enjoy event tiering, and I find that to be, a fun experience. Whereas song tiering can just be, painful at times. um, because I think like with event tiering, like with the exception of maybe Challenge Live, you more or less know where you stand with event tiering. If you're in first place and if you can kind of keep your rates up, and if nothing surprising in your personal life happens, then you kind of know, okay, I'm in good shape. Whereas with song tiering, you can do what you think is the best you can do, and then 2 minutes from the end of event, someone can just come and out Rilla you. So yeah, I think for that reason, for me personally, song tiering is way more stressful than event tiering, just because you never really know where you stand, and you never really know if the performance you gave is good enough to get the placement that you want.
That I can definitely attest to that. It's again, both of them, tierings involve different perspective, like aspects and skills, and also song tiering is, in a sense, I could argue, to be a little bit more whale too. You do need the optimal team or close to optimal to really make sure you are competitive to get into a T10 or higher spot. Event tiering, if you really put some gaudy hours into your schedule, then even a bad team could make things work and get a pretty respectable title in event tiering. But yeah, song tier is not really avoiding that. You really have to have the right team and be able to play well at the same time. So yeah, I can definitely see song tier be quite stressful. But sometimes, again, with song tier, like as TsyNo mentioned earlier, you could get it within the first hour, and then you're pretty much good to go. You're kind of set and good to go. But other times, you might be balding the entire event trying to get the score that you need. So
yeah, for Colorful Liberty, for that T1, yeah. I was like, okay, because I knew I was going for podium that event. So I was like, okay, I'll do the song tiering room until I get like a good enough score. And then 4 songs in, I got the max AP Gallup score, got the optimal skill order and whatnot. I'm like, okay, I'm done. See ya. So like, that was probably my easiest. In terms of the ones I found most fun, you had mentioned, you kind of have to, very often times have the optimal team to kind of really go for it. I think the only times I've really had, a lot of fun song tiering was when trying to squeeze into top 10 with a suboptimal team. Like for Red, 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 that was my first song top 10. I think I had the wrong Tamoy for that one. And then more recently, I worked really hard at Memento. I really wanted to learn the OPZ for that. And I had the wrong Karu, but still ended up in, I think, 6th place. So like for me, it's kind of more fun, like knowing like, okay, like there's no way I'm getting first place, so no need to stress over it. Let me just see how high I can do, and that kind of sense of personal achievement of, I managed to hit the OPZ, and just that intrinsic sense of accomplishment rather than like chasing a title.
Yeah.
So I do think it's fun in that regard, but when you're really aiming for a specific title, then I find it stressful because someone can just come along, unless you hit the score cap, and then someone can just come along last minute and boat you, and that's a little stressful.
I resonate with that feeling quite a lot, Kelsey, when especially in like trying to possibly chase something that you maybe have not necessarily think that would you be able to do. And that was me when I did my song tiering as well in school excursion, where I was pulling off gaudy hours to try and get the event T1, and then once I realized maybe I'll settle for not T1 and go a little bit later, go down a little bit on the board, I decide to put my efforts on song tiering, and I was like in the cusp of getting voted in song tiering, and a familiar name that TsyNo mentioned earlier about Houdini. I was just randomly pubbing song tiering. I saw Houdini in the room, and Houdini was also chasing for T10. So I was like, all right, I gotta out gorilla Houdini in this like one room to like, you know, to show my dominance, assert dominance. And that exact run, I got like I got my new personal best and beat her, and then I got a pretty secured top 10 song tiering. So it's a pretty funny coincidence that happened there. So
it's funny you mentioned that, because I do remember being in the call with her mentioning that she's trying to ops the difference to get into T10. And your name did pop up at that time during our conversation.
Yeah, I sadly am not really, you know, I know about ops. I understand what ops are, but I don't really necessarily implement them. I just had a really like pretty stacked event team, so I just kind of carried that to song tiering and just prayed that I played well enough. Obviously, it was difficult because my brain was A to Z brain mush at that point, but somehow you just make things work. And especially once I kind of realized that, you know, at some point in the event, you're like, okay, yeah, we're done. We're not going for the T1. So you kind of focus your efforts elsewhere, and there you go. So I guess I have Houdini to thank to really kind of make sure that I actually went super gorilla, and I had a good skill luck too. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's.
I'm personally a big proponent of, you know, do the song tiering at the start, get a score you're kind of satisfied with, and then just, you know, go ham and make your brain mush with tiering songs.
I agree to that as well.
that is the ideal plan, but sometimes the plan doesn't go quite well, and if let's say you're suddenly getting voted after your first strong run, and you're like, uh-oh. Sometimes it works. Generally, though, it probably won't work, though, to get the next song, to get a better score when your brain is already mushed up. So, yeah. One more quick thing I just want to ask maybe either of you, you know, if someone wants to get into song tiering, and then we'll go back to learn a little bit more about some of your event tiering. In terms of song tiering, if you want to, like, if someone who's a little bit maybe newer to the idea of song tiering, what is something that you would suggest to do to best prepare for song tiering? And of course, I think the obvious answer is just learn OPZs. But you know, for some people, maybe those might be the optimizations might not be the easiest to grasp or understand at first. So, is there any suggestions you might have about song tiering? And either of you can answer that.
Well, I can answer the first part. The easiest thing you can do really it's been mentioned in this podcast before, I think, but not this episode, but like previous episode. The easiest thing you can do is simply become consistent at the chart you're trying to look at. Like, if you can consistently all perfect the song or like get near it, then you can start looking at the ops, because the ops are something that you have to deal with after you've mastered a chart, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a double component. There's, you know, the song itself, if you're specifically going for, you know, your dream song title or whatnot. But then there's just getting kind of consistent at the game overall, maybe practicing OPZ and like free live songs. Like, I know a lot of people practice them for like the high score rating and just free live, and, you know, just with the random songs in there, and then get used to kind of tapping deliberately out of sync and whatnot. And then, yeah, like Psy said, just kind of becoming, you know, really consistent overall, being able to AP different things, and then kind of applying what you learned to, you know, the song of your choice. Maybe practicing it in JP if it's not out on global yet. But yeah, I think it really does come down to consistency and practice a lot.
Yeah, consistency, practice, and again, it gets frustrating because you could be doing everything right, but just the skill order luck is wrong, and you have to do it all over again. So yeah, consistency is definitely key. Be able to do it over and over again, not feel too deterred if you did everything right, but the game gods just say no. You just got to keep doing it again, right? So yeah, I definitely could attest to that, and especially again if the song's not even out in EN, then you have to play in JP or a different server to make sure you understand the map before it comes out. So yeah, great advice from both of you, and hopefully we'll see some more song tiers out there, or maybe, I don't know, it might just be Kelsey taking the T10 leaderboards every time regardless. So.
Did someone vote me yet this event? Am I still up there? I don't know.
All right, I'm on my way.
On my way,
BRB.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but yeah, maybe some aspiring song tiers will heed that advice, and we'll see some more, maybe some more competition that in the future, but we shall see. Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. As a reminder, the RePHIL Studio podcast is available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And when you're there, make sure to leave a high rating and also leave a comment, because all support with regards to bringing more exposure to the RePHIL Studio podcast is greatly appreciated. Speaking of support, big shout out and thank you to the Filler Nation members who've been constantly supporting me in making my content. So you'll be featured in videos like these. And again, I want to say a big thank you to you all for supporting me on my content. So if you want to be a part of the Filler Nation and you want to support me and my content, feel free to join by subscribing to my Twitch channel. Links in the description below. And in the description, you also see the link to my Ung Academy Discord server, where you can join fellow members who are passionate about Bang Dream and also be able to interact with special guests featured on this podcast. You'll also be able to participate in the studio question that appears on every episode. So we look forward to seeing you there. So let's hop right back into the episode. So, TsyNo, you mentioned, you did your bandwagon, and that was I would say, a very successful achievement there. That was planned and well in advance to make sure that, you were ready for that event. But you also had 3 events that you didn't necessarily plan for, and lo and behold, you got some more achievements there. So maybe go a little bit, share a brief history of those 3 events, and why did you end up doing them unplanned, and how did that all go?
So I've mentioned it before, this all stems from just succumbing to wanting to tier and, a little bit of peer pressure.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, 2 months after our original podcast tier, the next Afterglow event came, which was 5 months after OU. So, there's some time between them, and I was able to, gather up resources and whatnot. So I wasn't really planning on tiering Tales from a Splendid Night, but, our infamous homie, the man himself, Kevs, asked me once more, do you want to come tier with me, because my roster's falling apart due to what happened back at the end, like near the end of 2021 with the whole speed up. So like the first few months of speed up were rough on everybody, especially like rosters, because there was just a bunch of revisions being made to them. So I told them, you know what, sure, why not? Because I am trying to save for bandwagon and all that stuff, but I think with how Twitter or like social media was reacting in general to the event, I felt there would be no need to worry. And I was right.
Yeah.
So preparing for that, I didn't really have Power Glow, because my my T10 from 2020, my multi-life team was full 3-star Power Glow. So and then my CL team was like different attributes for Afterglow, but that's how I made up the difference. But and by the time Tales from the Splendid Night happened, I probably had like, what was it? Maybe like two. I had like 2 or 3 Power Glow, but Dreamfest happened, before that, and I think it was the anniversary Dreamfest where DF2 Mocha came out, or was it one afterwards? I don't recall. Well, the Dreamfest where DF2 Mocha came out is where I sparked her, because I was like, you know what, this might come in handy, this might not. And just Afterglow fan in general, so I just wanted the DF card, and so
yeah.
And eventually that came in handy, because I think I had like 4 out of 5 for Tales from the Splendid Night, it being a versus live. So because I had 4 out of 5, I couldn't really song tier, especially when the top 10 all needed ops to even get in it with optimal. So because the song was pretty easy to ops, because there's a bunch of different ops that you can take on to like that are challenging depending on your skill set, but that song in particular, it was just gallops, which is just hitting the second note like a frame after the first note. So with that song needing opt and gallops, it's like, okay, no need to worry about that. Just take the free top 100 title and just work on the event. And that event went, I said it before, I felt targeted because like Afterglow specifically, because that event was also 8 days.
Oh no.
So OU 8 days, Tales from a Splendid Night 8 days, Bandwagon 8 days. Oh my god, I was so livid up to that point, because that's 7 months of, because December to July, that was just 7 months of why is Afterglow getting 8-day events. But thankfully, like I said, the uproar on social media kind of made it so like people weren't really interested. So in the end, like EP wise, I only had to play like 2.5 days worth. So like I think I played like very casually. I didn't even do like 24-hour sprints or anything like that. Probably did like 12 hours and then just like got a full night's rest or something like that. That was also the event that I met the second person in the Bang Dream community. And it's kind of funny, because you would think with how many people like live in my state in the US, it'd be one of them. But no, it happened to be one of the Singapore boys, Speedy Rogue himself.
Oh, wow.
So that was a fun time, because Kevs and I said, we could just hang out on that weekend and, go out. So, we spent the day with Speedy in the middle of tearing that event because of how casual it was.
Yeah. That's neat. Meeting people that you know online and just seeing them in person, it's obviously really cool. And I remember you mentioning about how Kevs and you were kind of hanging out even during the other tiering events as well. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. So in the end of that event, because of how chill it was, I ended up we had the roster plan. So Kevs would be getting first place, I'd be getting second place, and so on. So I got my second place title then, and that was the end of that. It was, like every other event, I would just be in VC whenever I was tiering and stream content to anybody willing to join. That's one planned one unplanned event so far. The second one came 2 months after Bandwagon, which was Scribble in the Blue. And that one came with its own set of controversies, little drama here and there, but I won't get into those details like so much. Really, what happened was I had 3 podiums at this point. I had 2 first places and a second place, and I was debating whether I wanted to get a third place or not. And with the way tiering servers work, people don't want you to be in them if you're going to be competing against them. So I left. I was a mod for both of them because at the time, like I just wasn't considering it. Like, bandwagon. That was my goal. So I was like, okay, I'll just mod for both of you. I have like no, I have no real favorite here. So like I'll give advice to both of you when I can. But like I said, tier and temptations get the better of you. And then like after bandwagon, I was debating maybe get the T3. So like I said, month prior before this happened, I left both the servers just because I didn't want to deal with any internal politics. And this one, because it was a mission live, like one of us, I did not have to save. I did not have to like grab any specific cards. I could just use the same team I did for one of us, since the gains wouldn't be that much different.
Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to be a team life, but the JP screw
Ian Dory once again rearing its head, be like, hey, why don't I, have some impact on what you do things here? So.
But I mean, that wasn't so much Andori as it was JP having the issues trying to implement the private rooms into Team Live, right, which kind of messed up that whole thing. So because private rooms weren't properly implemented in JP at that time, they just converted it to Mission Live and said sorry.
Yeah, so, now remember. Yeah, that's what happened. Yes, that's right.
So every other server just had to make it a Mission Live. So I guess that played in my favor. Because I didn't have like an optimal team for like scoring, so like I probably would have like lost. But with it being Mission Live, I can just same gains as one of us. Let's go. Why not? So for that one, I was mostly just counting on friends who like would want to support me outside of the server. So I was just sitting in like one of the private servers with a few friends, and I just sat there in VC, and if anybody wanted to join me, they could. Like I wasn't forcing anybody to, so I spent a majority of it pubbing. And then, I think like days 2 and 3 like had me. I don't know. The event was like pretty chill for mostly everybody, but the two people in competition with each other, they were going back and forth. So I guess they both wanted my help, even though I wasn't part of their part of their servers.
Oh yeah.
But and that eventually, like when the event got to like the midway point, it became evident that nobody was gonna try to go for T3 on either of their servers, especially when they knew how much I was gonna go for it, how much I was gunning for it. So eventually that led to me rejoining one of them. And it's just whoever like offered their hand first, I guess, because like no hard feelings, but sometimes if a server don't want you, they don't want you, and if they do, if the people like you enjoy being around with are there, might as well just take advantage of it. Like at the end of the day, we all have our own goals, and whether we met them or not really just depend on us. And me specifically, that event, I attained my goal of getting my T3. So at that point, I had done I've had 2 T1s, a T2, and a T3 at that point.
Yeah.
So, but that what it worked out mostly, and I kept emphasizing it. The previous 3 events were 8 days. And this one finally was a 6-day event.
Wow.
And, oh my God. That's probably the reason I went for it in the first place. Cause like, okay, I need to tier a 6-day event. I need to know how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like, just actually feels like what does it feel like to actually have two less days? Even though, again, for some of the previous events, you may have not, you may have already stopped playing by like the fourth day or whatnot. But still, just the fact that you don't have to wait as long for the event results to end and just be able to hopefully get things done sooner is obviously nice. So yeah.
Oh yeah, like that event Scribble. I think I played for like 4 days
Mhm.
basically, and then like sometime in the middle of like day 4, I think I just said, you know what, I'm gonna just chill and just do my nats. So like middle of day 4, I just started doing nats and just resting on the event
Mhm.
and just making sure, like that the people below me don't like have any funny ideas.
No funny ideas indeed. Yeah.
Because you can't like, things happen, and it's just competition at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
hopefully people just don't have any hard feelings at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So that's another achievement done, and you're like, okay, well, that's already two T1s, one T2, one T3. You have a little podium of everything, right? So at that point, it's like everything should be good to go. But wait, but wait, there's more.
Oh my god, yes, there's one more.
We'll briefly look over that then.
So that one was the funniest one. So the final event that I tiered that wasn't planned for was behold their swaying skirts as they run, which was the Happy Glow medley.
Mhm.
So that was going to be a first for me because it's a medley. And previously in the podcast I mentioned I just after Bandwagon just had like no real ambition to tier,
Mhm.
but as we know now that didn't really happen. And tiering just got the better of me. So by the time after that event was gonna come by, I think I had like maybe I think it was like 9. I had 9 Happy Glow, and it was like just after the Sugu birthday, which was optimal. So I had a decision to make, and I didn't make it until the final hour of Birthday Sugu's banner being gone. So like an hour before Birthday Sugu banner uh disappeared, I said, you know what, why not? Let's just pull the trigger. So ended up sparking the Birthday Sugu to make it 10 out of 15. And then I thought to myself, is there a way to get optimal? And there was.
I wonder how.
See, optimal for that event needed both banner cards, but that only covers 2 out of the 5 cards I need. Luckily, I had 2 Miratics at that time, so that covers another 2 more. And the saving grace and all that was that Happy Glow medley was the first event in Bandori to have the Star Seal system that was late. Right. So because of that, I could do a little sparking and guarantee that I get the 5th card I needed. So prior to the event, I had a 9 out of 15, and then I grabbed Birthday Sugu. I grabbed both the Mirtix cards I needed. I grabbed both optimals like pretty early on, like in my gotcha. And then, but what I needed mostly was the 15th card, which was a perm. So I had no other choice but to spark the Star Seals. And that's what I did. So that's how I got 15 out of 15 for that event. So that's at that time I told myself, you know what? Let's do it. Why not? It's a medley. I know I said I hate these events, but here we are. First hour, like we've talked about before, you need to try to get the best score you can, because once you get that, then you can just focus on having your brain go to mush with like A to Z.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a pretty decent score that had me and our buddy at Daniel, like we were the only ones with optimal the first like few hours of the event.
Yeah.
So like we were both bouncing back and forth between first and second, because medley isn't just one song, it's 3 songs that you have to play. And with skill RNG the way it is, oh my god, it's a whole different beast than having like a 1 out of 20 chance or something in like CL or versus. So on top of like having to play 3 songs, we would have to like do ops for them if we really cared for it. But considering how scary medley team building can be, pretty sure we could have just slept on that and just do AP score. So at that time, because it's medley, we didn't know who would be competing. So we just like spend like an hour or so like doing the medley song. And then after that, we went full guns blazing on just solitaring the whatever songs we preferred. I did a Savior song for the first like few hours or so, and then I swapped to A to Z. But no private servers because it's a medley, so we had to expect that everybody was competition, and that's kind of what happened. Like the T3, who we now know is Blurry, at the time we had no idea what their goals were, so all we could do was really play more. So whereas T4 stopped after like 7.8 million, Blurry took us all the way past 20 million.
Wow, look at that.
And there's no bad blood, none of that. It's the nature of competition. I was expecting to go that high anyways, because before the event happened, Danny told me he wanted to like hit some like score, or not score, some EP like past 20 million, and wanted to get a second place title. So I was like, okay, if that's what we're gonna do, I could probably go past 20 million with you, and if it works out, I'll be first place. If not, I'll be third. But so obviously I was gonna aim for first, because I was like, okay, maybe I don't want another third. Maybe another first place would be kind of fun, especially since it's medley. And for the next, what was it? It was a 6-day event. For 5 days, pretty much. It was mostly me and Danny and VC, and we were just watching movie after movie, just because the way menuing speeds work in medley is it's just dependent on your device alone. You don't have to like wait for everybody's connection times and like menuing. It's just instant. So we had like little to no downtime in between songs. So we needed to keep our minds like awake. And at the end of the day, both of us got what we were aiming for, which was podium titles past 20 million. So like I said, Blurry chasing us, like we were concerned a bit, competition, but obviously we don't discourage people from doing that, because that's how the nature of competition is. You compete for these things. Yeah, so like if I didn't get my goal, there would have been no hard feelings, because it was solo at the end of the day too.
And whoever gets it better, right? Whoever's played better, whoever were able to achieve their goals better. So
yeah. And as for a song tier, a 4th person with optimal came up. Like two people with optimal came up. So one of them was at the end of day 1, and the other one was like at the final day. So the end of day 1 person, the Mr. Stalewater himself, Aqua, took first place. So he, nothing we could do against him, since he has more ops experience and he's not hearing the event like we are. So there's just so much more time for him to deal with those optimizations. So I wasn't expecting to beat him, especially with how tired I was. And then on the final day, another person came, like the fourth person came up and voted both of us too. So we both, went down a rank. So at the end of that event, I ended up with first place event and a third place song title, if you can call it that. It's a medley, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it wasn't too bad though, because I was still missing the T3 song anyways, so I was content with having double podium yet again.
That's perfectly fine. And again, just by the sounds of it, I know, again, just when you do things a little unprepared and last minute, it could definitely be a little bit more stressful, when you have other competition involved. And I think each of these events brought very unique challenges, whether or not it was possibly making sure that the competition was at bay, either through your medley live tiering or in general making sure that competition was still a fun and hopefully relatively enjoyable experience for all players, despite the results at the end in your previous events as well. So well, that's great to note. And again, it's great to hear from all those achievements. It's not easy, I imagine, to suddenly get all these achievements, especially unprepared, but you were able to do it, and regardless, and show why that tiering can still be quite fun sometimes, and still get back to it, even though you may necessarily think it's all done and good. So yeah. Good. Well, and they also want to briefly. I think that's a pretty elaborate discussion of what you did. I guess that's all for the time being. But am I correct to say that, or?
I mean, aside from that, the most recent thing I did was just randomly get optimal for ReZero, and that was kind of. Yeah, that was kind of funny because I was not planning it at all. But I said, I'll do a few pulls, and ended up luck sacking both the banner cards, and so that happened. But I didn't want to actually tier the event, so I had a limited amount of tries. So the fact that I ended up with a T3, a T4, and a T5 on songs was, good enough for me.
That's fair. Yeah, for sure. And a little bit of whale contributions here and there, as we definitely hear from Medley. I'm not going to ask how many stars you spent on that to prepare for Medley Live. It was probably a lot. So
yeah,
we'll just leave it at that. So
you can imagine why I'm sort of not in the mood to do much tiering nowadays, considering how much these events took out of me.
Yeah, definitely.
My wallet mostly.
Yeah, your poor wallet. So regardless, TsyNo, great hearing about your achievements, and once again, congratulations on those. Great. So Kelsey, we'll now finally move to you. You have a couple of achievements that that we want to share as well. I think, again, I'm just looking at the timelines, just making sure it makes sense. I'm pretty sure after the T10 that you got in the Bourgeon event, it was basically from there, I'm guessing it was just going for the Rui Rinko event, right? So maybe
I teach the event right after Bourgeon as well.
Okay, backstage pass?
Yes, the medley.
Oh no, not more medleys.
Yeah, actually, double T10 to that one.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, so like Psy, I don't know, I'm not really good at planning either. I think of the non-podium events, I think this current one I'm trying for right now was the only one I went into the event with the intent to top 10. All the others were just, I kind of played a lot and ended up there. And I went into searching for stars a little bit, and it was just that I didn't want to get voted from top 100, so wound up in fourth. Actually, all of my T10s were fourth place, funny enough. yeah, and then for Bourgeois, I was just song tiering Go Coco so much that kind of wound up in T10, and again, I might as well go for it. And then yeah, for the backstage pass event, yeah, I was trying to get the top 50, because I try to get top 50, or I guess higher, for any event that Rui is in. And she was, I believe, the 3-star, like the event 3-star for that event. So I was playing a bunch and wanted to be secure for my T50, but then I realized it was in like 12th or something, and the top 10 like wasn't really moving. It was all really tight. So I think on like the second to last day, I just kind of pushed and then wound up in 4th place for that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm not, you're not alone, Psy. I'm not really great at planning either.
Well, regardless though, the fact that you did back-to-back T10s just without too much prior experience in like long-term tiering, you just went ahead and did back-to-back is very impressive though, especially without the planning you've done.
And well, she's calling me the whale. I only have one T10. SMH.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think particularly for medley, because I tiered a lot in Sif, and that was a lot of kind of solo grinding, long hours. So for medley, it was almost a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, okay, I don't need to get any tiering politics or watch my rates suffer because I'm just pubbing the whole time. Being able to just kind of, okay, this is a mark of my ability and my uptime. Yeah, that was kind of refreshing and like a throwback to the Sif tiering almost.
Old days, yeah. It's wonderful. Yeah. Good. Well, that's again really impressive that you went like back to back and just kind of spend like a whole almost like 2 weeks just nonstop playing and being able to even do VS Live as well. The VS Live, I believe, there was a song tier as well, so you could possibly go for as well. So that's great to see that you're still able to balance that regardless. In other news though, Kelsey, the event afterwards, which of course was your T1 attempt. Please don't tell me that you didn't plan for it. I'm sure you actually planned for that well in advance. Yeah. Tell me a little more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the story for that one is kind of funny. So I actually was planning to like quit or like retire after Bourgeois. Getting the song first place. That was kind of my last sort of major, goal with the game at the time. Because I don't know, there weren't really any medleys that I wanted to like go for first place on, and everything else like aiming for a T1 in pubs. You're at kind of a disadvantage with that.
Yeah.
So my event top 10s, they're pretty impressive, and then the song tier, really wanting to kind of put the effort into that, and then I sort of achieved that goal. So I was planning on, I think Backstage Pass ran from like end of December through like the first couple of days of January. Originally I was going to retire on January 1st because that's when I quit all of my rhythm games, for both Sif and Sif AS. Diet Kurosawa's birthday, peace out. But then I think that was when I was like really close to the top 10 of Backstage Pass. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll finish this one out, get back-to-back top 10s, and then call it. So I think on like January 2nd or something, Curbs, myself, and a few others were memeing around in PubCord, and we were talking about Rinko Rui, and I think Curbs had mentioned being a bit unsure about if he wanted to go for it, and myself knowing, like I'm quitting like tomorrow, I was like, okay, I guess I'll snipe and go Rui T1 then. So to my surprise, Curbs was like, "Oh, do you wanna?" I was like, "What?" So he DM'd me his server link, and then I joined, and suddenly I had the podium role, and was in the top 10 chat, and he had posted an announcement like, "Oh, Kelsey's T1 now."
You've been voluntold.
I think he was just looking for an out. So I was like, well, I can't be like, I was just joking, I'm quitting tomorrow after being handed a server, like that would be,
the peer pressure.
Yeah, set you up for a big stage right there,
like it would be unappreciative, thanks for the server, but no thank you. Yeah, so I mean, that one was planned in the sense of this was, a couple of months before the event, but I wouldn't necessarily call them planned in the sense that, I didn't make my own server for it, and I didn't really, when the event was announced, I didn't go into it going, this is my chance. It was just, out of Curbs's both generosity and probably wanting to back out of that T1, that I kind of ended up on that roster. And I think I mentioned earlier, it was my first time kind of on a roster or in a server, and actually running an event and not just pubbing the events. So yeah, that right there was kind of it's an interesting experience. And then for Summer Morph, that one was kind of I was going back and forth on if I wanted to go for top 10 for that one. And I was in Tyron's server, but then a couple of days before I was like, oh yeah, I think I might want to snipe. So I left the server. I just wanted to quietly not server snipe. But then
Oopsie daisy.
yeah, so then almost immediately Tyron DM'd me and was like, "Hey, you left. Is everything okay?" I was like, "Oh yeah, awkward. Yeah, I want to snipe. Sorry."
He's like, "Yeah, I have some naughty thoughts here about this event." So.
Yeah, because I was because his server was kind of 2 events, were being kind of hosted in there or whatever. So I was on the roster for one. So I was like, I guess I'll leave and then come back after Summer Morph. That's kind of awkward, but I wasn't on the roster for Summer Morph. But yeah, so he DM'd me, was like, oh well, you can just join the roster then. Like, oh, okay.
More peer pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I joined the roster, and then yeah, I think that we started running, and then I was in first place, and he's like, oh, do you want to just go for third, assuming things go well, because things were going very smoothly. I was like, okay, sure, I'll go for third. And yeah, so that one ended up being pretty chill.
Oh, well, yeah,
it's semi-planned.
It definitely seemed like, again, a lot of unplanned influences, or for both of you, and Kelsey in your case, a little bit of you were kind of saying, I don't want to play anymore, but then the moment someone put you on the spotlight and be like, hey, look, this person's Kelsey's going for T1. Hey, look, Kelsey has thoughts for podium. It just kind of feels like you can't refuse them. So
you can't look a gift horse in the mouth,
Yeah. So that's pretty quite fascinating to hear that. It did seem like a little unplanned, but I'm sure there wasn't any regrets from tiering those events, because again, getting a Rui banner first place is probably something you never thought you would get. Nonetheless, kind of be handed in a sense that opportunity to do that. So
Yeah, and I think like particularly with that specific event, I was already kind of trying to figure out a way to at least like top 10 it. I was going to pub it. I think might have been on the wait list for the other server's roster actually, before getting kind of handed Curbs' server. But yeah, that event in particular really resonated with me, and just Rui's kind of backstory, if you will. I don't know, it was pretty meaningful for me. So the fact that I got that opportunity, and I don't know, it was just a really positive experience overall. Honestly, all of the events I've tiered have been pretty positive.
Yeah.
I'm like Psy, like relatively chill, drama free,
You were able to sleep quite well during your tiering, I imagine.
Well, for Rinko Rui, I wanted to push. I actually beat JP's T1 rates for that. So I didn't really sleep much there, even though I probably could have. And I was very fortunate to have a really strong roster, and for most of the event, it was the podium runners just kind of in a room, and then fillers or other T10 runners. And I think by the end of the event, we had, I think, 9 people on the roster, and everyone kind of made it in. We had 8 or 9. I think we had 8. Yeah, we had 8 people on the roster, and all 8 of us made it in. So just very fortunate, a really solid group of people, really skilled people. And yeah, I think initially there were maybe 4 servers total for it, but then we ended up absorbing 2 of them. So the roster just kept growing and growing.
I find that event came from just streaming the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, I did feel every now and then whenever there was like no people like in the rooms, but my job mostly was just streaming movies and made sure she was awake.
Yeah, I think I would have probably lost my sanity if not for the VC movie times.
Well, that's wonderful, Kelsey, to hear that. You brought a lot of great memories of it, and despite the fact that maybe this wasn't planned or something you necessarily was going to do, given the opportunity, you took it and did very well to for both your T1 and then eventually your T3 not too long after. So it's been like maybe a couple of months only has passed, but you've gotten some pretty big event titles in that short span. So that's quite an achievement, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I might have caught the bug, if you will.
Quite a whale, I would say.
Yeah. Kelsey, anything else you want to was there one particular fun thing that you recall that happened in these times, or is that all that we kind of covered in terms of your tiering achievements?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down one specific fun time, because it's all been really fun, and pretty much the entirety of Rinko Rui in particular, it was just us memeing and joking, and it was all of them were pretty chill overall, but
I mean, I can recall something.
Uh-oh.
Oh
no. During that series of movies that we watch, every time we got that fun surprise. You know what I'm talking about, Kelsey, but
I know what you're talking about.
Oh boy.
It's like, hey.
Oh, sorry guys, I failed the song, got distracted.
Yeah, movies can be very distracting.
Yeah. It can be quite distracting, but it's there in the pastime, right? Otherwise, it's hard. Sometimes your performance in the song drops significantly when you have distractions, but distractions kind of feel like a necessary evil in order to make sure that you actually feel sane while playing and actually still feel motivated to play. So yeah, it's definitely
I think losing like a couple 100 points per song because you're dropping combo because you're watching a movie is significantly better than losing all of your uptime because you just fall asleep because you're bored or drained or exhausted.
That
So
is true.
very happy trade.
Yeah, I definitely take that trade too, for sure. So good. Well, both of you, it has been a wonderful time speaking with you in this studio today and part of this podcast. So thank you to the both of you for taking the time to share your lovely stories. It's wonderful to hear just all the great teetering memories and experiences you've had. A lot of them very recent too. So glad to have you two on board. Just before I end things off for today, I just want to give the opportunity for the two of you to share some last words, last shout outs to individuals, and maybe share a little bit about your future tiering plans. I know both of you have mentioned it already that maybe tiering is not something to be doing in the future, but let's entertain that idea as well, if you do have any whale thoughts of future tiering. So Kelsey, we'll actually start with you. Any last words, shout outs, and future tiering plans?
I guess in terms of future tiering plans, I'd like to pursue top 10 on the recent EN event. Just say yes. You might know, it's currently ongoing.
And you're spending time doing
how...
this, so I greatly appreciate that.
Don't worry about it. We got movie time coming up. It's fine.
Movie time coming up. Okay. I'm trusting you on that.
A little break, right? A little break in tiering.
Yeah. So yes, I mean that. So far so good as far as this current event's going. Other than that, nothing too crazy planned. Maybe a T10 here or there. But yeah, I guess in terms of shout outs, I guess just to I always try to profusely thank my friends and people who I tier with, but yeah, I guess Fervent Garui, my whole roster, you guys were super fantastic, and even in this current event, like a lot of my friends, because again, I'm not really in a dedicated tiering server for that. I've just been mostly playing with friends this event, and it's just really heartwarming to see how many people are kind of stepping up and helping out and offering support when going on these tiering endeavors and spending all-nighters just tapping at a screen. So I guess just a formal thank you to all my friends there, and to TsyNo for movie time.
Great. I was actually going to mention that maybe you want to go for the Rui sweep, the Rui banner sweep, but maybe there's a Rui banner coming up in a couple of months, but maybe we'll wait until a few weeks before the event where someone might give you that opportunity again. So we shall see.
We'll see.
We shall see. So. Great. Well, again, Kelsey, thank you for that. And TsyNo as well. Last word, shout outs, any future events that you may plan on doing.
I keep telling myself, even after the whole bandwagon thing, I was like, how much longer do I want to continue my journey in this game? And before I was certain that it was going to be sometime after that, but now I don't know. I'm not so sure. But what I can tell you is that when it comes to tiering, I've certainly have chilled, I guess, because doing a year's worth of podiums takes a lot of time, money, and mental off of you. And what do you really do after having all the titles, So as for future tiering, the only thing I really put myself out there to do as a final thing is the upcoming Halloween Afterglow event.
Yeah.
And, I had some thoughts on what I wanted to do, whether it was go for podium or T10 or, T50 or T100. I'm somewhat uncertain, you could say, but I guess I'll make the attempt to try to get the T10, and maybe that'll be my final tearing moment. As for like playing the game, I still kind of enjoy playing the game, just to play songs, but I've kind of I keep putting myself I keep throwing myself under the bus, telling myself, oh, I'm not as great as I think I am, because when it comes down to it, I like really been playing to get better, and that's like accuracy wise. Like recently I've finally hit my goal of getting 400 EX APs.
Nice.
So that was kind of stressful, because for a while I was sitting at like 380ish, and I told myself I'm not good enough. I can't really do this, and it probably would need like new songs to reach it. And I just people kept telling me just keep trying and trying, like play these charts, and you can definitely do it. And I didn't give up and ended up getting the 400th AP with a really whack song, you could say. My 400th was Red Fraction.
Oh yeah, that's a weird one for sure.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I shared what remaining APs I had with some friends, and they told me, why not go for more Afterglow APs? You're missing, I was missing 7 at the time. I think it's like 6 now. Or maybe it was 6 and it's 5 now. Something like that. But one of the ones I had left was I Love Your Way, and that was another another Yabai chart.
Yeah, yeah.
It was kind of funny because they told me do it, and I did, and 4 failed attempts. And after the 4th failed attempt, I went into Bandori's chart simulator to look at where I'm messing up. And it was just like one little tiny thing. I was like, okay, so I'm supposed to go from lane 7 to 5 to 7, not 7, 6, 7, because that was causing lane splash issues. And literally the next play after, I got an AP on it. So
yeah,
it's kind of so there's just I just been like demotivating myself because of songs that I feel like I could do, I just haven't done. So tearing wise, maybe Halloween Glow, and then that's it. Playing the game, I don't know. We'll just see how much fun I have left.
For sure. Yeah.
And as for shout outs though, I had to shout out the reboot server. You know who you are. Best hearing server for Medley. Wink, wink. And surprisingly, the not dead simp server.
Yeah.
We do a little trolling in that server. We get things done.
For sure. Great. Well, both of you, once again, great pleasure to have you on the studio. And with that, our set has been complete for this episode. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of the RePHIL Studio. A reminder that you could check out all this podcast and all of your favorite podcast platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. And of course, make sure to join the Anga Academy Discord server. Links in the description below if you want to contribute to these podcast discussions and listen to these recordings live. With that, the set has been complete. Hope you will refill to 99 on the next set. But until then, thank you all so much for taking the time to join this episode today. So we'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.